My father spent 40 years building our family business, 40 years of early mornings, 40 years of missed holidays, 40 years of putting everyone else first. By the time he passed away at 72, the company had become one of the most respected businesses in our region. It wasn't just a company. It was his life's work. And according to the valuation completed shortly before his death, it was worth approximately $4.2 million. Dad had always been clear about what he wanted. Everything would be divided equally between his 3 children. My older brother, Daniel. My younger sister, Rachel, and me. Each of us would eventually receive more than $1.30 million at least. That was the plan. 3 days after the funeral, we sat together in Dad's office. His favorite chair remained empty. The room still smelled faintly of his coffee. And before we left, Daniel placed a hand on the desk. "We'll take care of this place," he said. "We'll make Dad proud." Rachel nodded. I nodded. And for a moment, I believed we were united. I had no idea Daniel was already planning something that would tear our family apart forever. Because 6 months later, I discovered the company had been sold. And according to the paperwork, I had personally approved it. There was only one problem. I had never signed a thing. After Dad's death, Daniel naturally took over daily operations. He had worked alongside Dad for nearly 20 years. I worked in corporate finance. Rachel lived several states away. So none of us questioned it. Every few weeks, Daniel sent updates. Business was stable. Clients were happy. Revenue was strong. Whenever I asked if there was anything unusual happening, he'd laugh. "I've got everything under control." Looking back now, those words sound different because, well, he was reassuring us. He was negotiating a secret sale worth millions of dollars. I discovered the truth completely by accident. A longtime family friend invited me to lunch. He had known my father for more than 30 years. Halfway through the meal, he mentioned attending a meeting at company headquarters. I smiled. Dad would have loved hearing that. My friend hesitated. Then he frowned. "You haven't met the new owners yet." I stared at him. "What new owners?" He slowly lowered his coffee cup. The color drained from his face. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then he leaned forward. Double quotes. "Wait. They told me the family approved the sale." I felt my stomach tighten. "The sale?" He looked genuinely confused. "You mean nobody told you?" Suddenly, the noise of the restaurant seemed to disappear. The conversations around us faded into the background. I could hear my heartbeat. And for the first time, I knew something was terribly wrong. The next morning, I drove straight to company headquarters. The moment I entered the parking lot, I felt sick. Dad's company sign was gone. A completely different logo hung above the building. Inside, employees looked uncomfortable when they saw me. One manager finally pulled me aside. His voice was barely above a whisper. "I thought your family already knew." "Knew what?" "The company was sold 4 months ago." 4 months. For entire months, the business my father spent 40 years building had been sold without a single phone call, without a family meeting. Without informing his own children. Nothing made sense. And it was about to get worse. I immediately hired an attorney. Within days, we obtained copies of the sale documents. I still remember sitting in her office. Page after page. Legal agreements. Transfer documents. Approvals. Then she stopped. There, she turned one page toward me. My signature sat at the bottom, perfectly placed, perfectly forged. For several seconds, I couldn't breathe. My name. My handwriting style. Everything looked authentic. Except I had never seen the document before. My attorney looked at me carefully. "Did you sign this?" "No." "Are you absolutely certain?" I looked at the page again. Then back at her. I've never seen it before in my life. At that moment, we both knew what had happened. Someone had forged my signature, and deep down, I already knew who. That weekend, Rachel and I confronted Daniel. We met at his house. I placed the documents on his kitchen table. Explain this. For a fraction of a second, panic flashed across his face. Then he smiled, a calm smile. A rehearsed smile. You signed those months ago? No, I didn't. Maybe you forgot. Rachel actually laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. Forgot. She said, people don't forget selling a $4 million company. Daniel crossed his arms. You both know. No. I said, we didn't. Rachel picked up one of the documents. Her hands were shaking. Tears filled her eyes. Dad trusted. U.S. Her voice cracked. He spent his entire life teaching us to protect each other. She looked directly at Daniel. How could you do this to your own family? For the first time, Daniel couldn't meet her eyes. Then something changed. The confident smile disappeared, and suddenly he snapped, you think this is fair? The room went silent. I spent 20 years in that company. His voice shook with emotion. 20 years. I missed birthdays. I missed vacations. I gave my life to that business while both of you built lives somewhere else. Rachel stared at him. I stared at him for the first time. He wasn't acting like a mastermind. He sounded like a son carrying years of resentment. Dad kept talking about equality, Daniel said, but I was the one who stayed. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I looked down at the forged documents, and whatever sympathy I had disappeared, because resentment didn't explain forgery. It didn't explain deception, and it certainly didn't explain stealing from your own family. Over the next several weeks, our attorney uncovered more evidence, a lot more. The documents had supposedly been signed while I was attending a conference nearly 800 miles away. There were flight records, hotel records, photographs, witnesses, dozens of people could verify my location. Then investigators discovered problems with the notary records. Several timestamps didn't match. Email chains revealed Daniel had been negotiating the sale months before informing anyone. Every new piece of evidence pointed to the same conclusion. The signatures were fake. The sale had been orchestrated in secret, and Daniel was responsible. The lawsuit moved quickly. By then, even the buyers were furious. They claimed they had purchased the company legally. Our attorney argued the sale was invalid because one of the required owners had never approved it. The courtroom was packed during the hearing. Former employees attended. Clients attended. Friends of my father attended. Everyone wanted answers, especially one. Why would a son betray his own family? When Daniel testified, his story started falling apart almost immediately. He contradicted earlier statements he couldn't explain. The forged signatures, he couldn't explain. The altered records, he couldn't explain. Why Rachel and I were never informed. Hour by hour, the truth became impossible to ignore. Then the handwriting expert took the stand. The testimony lasted less than 30 minutes, but it ended the case. The signatures had been copied, replicated, forged. There was no doubt. Years of lies collapsed in a single afternoon. Several weeks later, the judge delivered the ruling. The sale was declared invalid. Millions of dollars in proceeds were frozen. Additional investigations were ordered, and Daniel was held financially responsible for substantial damages. Then the judge looked directly at him. The courtroom became silent, and he said something I will never forget. Your father spent a lifetime building trust. He paused. You destroyed yours in pursuit of money. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Daniel stared at the floor. For once in his life, he had nothing to say. A few months later, while cleaning at Dad's office, Rachel found something hidden in the back of a filing cabinet. A sealed envelope. Written in Dad's handwriting, addressed to all three of us. Inside was a single sentence. Just one. Take care of each other. Money comes and goes. Family is forever. Rachel started crying before she finished reading it aloud. I couldn't speak because by then, the money had been recovered. The company had survived. The employees kept their jobs. Dad's legacy was safe, but our family wasn't. I haven't spoken to Daniel in 3 years, Rachel hasn't either. Some betrayals create wounds that never fully heal, and some amounts of money simply aren't worth the cost. My father spent 40 years building the company. My brother almost destroyed everything trying to steal what wasn't his. In the end, the truth won. But by the time it did. The family Dad spent a lifetime protecting was already gone. And that's the part no court could ever fix.